morning, guys. I think this is the first where I'm eating my breakfast while I'm filming a podcast. I don't think I've ever filmed this early before. Like, Jean is still asleep, but there's supposed to be construction in my building today. So I was like, if there is any chance of me filming this podcast, it's going to be before the sun rises and before all the construction workers get to our building. So good morning and welcome. Welcome. I honestly don't have too many topics to talk about today, but I do have a lot of questions from you guys, which is really nice. But last week, and even this weekend, was really just cold and rainy. And like, I mean that in the sense of it felt like it was winter. Like the temperature in Paris all of last week and even before that really felt the exact same as the temperature and the weather in November and December. Like it was, Jean and I pulled out our wool socks, our winter coats, and our sweaters from our storage. It was freezing. And I was talking to my best friend about it because I hadn't spoken to her in over a week. I couldn't manage to, send her a voice messages or call or anything like that because I don't know what it is, but when it's raining consistently, like when I don't see the sun, I think that's it. When I don't see the sun, I go into such a zombie-like state. It's so hard for me to find motivation. It feels like a short spell of depression, if I'm being honest. Like it feels like my world is over. And it's so bizarre because it's such a minor thing, like the weather. It's not some huge monumental thing in my life, but the gray skies really, really gets to me, man. And I was really thinking about tourists that had come to Paris in early May. I mean, it looks like it's sunny today, and I looked at the weather. It's supposed to be nicer this week. But I was thinking about tourists that had come in the early weeks of May or even like the late weeks of April. And again, it was just this rainy, cold weather, and I could not imagine paying for a nice trip to Paris and having to experience mostly that kind of weather. So I really hope the turning point is this week and it's gonna be nice and sunny. But yeah, all that to say, because of the weather, we didn't really do much last week or last weekend. We were supposed to go to a play outdoors, but obviously it was canceled because of the torrential downpour. But yeah, we didn't really do much. Just had a cozy weekend. We did have a couple partiers in the building, which is a rarity. It's always something that you prioritize when you're looking for an apartment in Paris, is you want to be in an apartment that is mostly older people and families. Like if you're not a student anymore and you're not partying on the weekends, you're not having parties, then you want to be in a building where other people are not creating a lot of noise as well. And generally speaking, for the past year and a half, it's been totally fine. But last week we had some partiers, and it's one thing to like talk loud and hear that, because the thing is, if you have a balcony and your people at your party are on the balcony and they're talking, they're laughing, they're smoking, like you can hear it in the building. But it's one thing to have that kind of noise. It's another to be playing hardcore, like head pounding electronic music, the kind of music where it's like like that, and have it on full blast so that the entire building is shaking. That was the kind of music that they were playing at this party. And it's like, okay, you can stand it to a certain point, but like around 1 a.m, I ended up going up and knocking on the door and be like, do you think you could maybe turn the music off? Like, it's 1 a.m. But yeah, it's like one of those things. I'm a really light sleeper. So if I hear any noise, I can't sleep. It's like awful. So thankfully they did turn it down. There's sometimes when you go and talk to your neighbors and they're like, no, bye, call the police. And so yeah, I'm happy that they, I don't know, were reasonable. I feel like 1 a.m. is like a reasonable time for your neighbors to ask you to turn on the music. But yeah, that's just like another reality that was so new for me when I moved to Paris, especially as a student, because when I was a student in Aix-en-Provence specifically, I was studying for my master's, and it was very, very hard for me at the start because I was the only Anglophone. I was the only international student. Everything was 100% in French. And like, I'm definitely good at French. I've definitely improved, of course, since my master's. But it's not just having to learn in French. It's having to like write essays in French, full essays, write reports in French, and read texts and books in French, which takes me a lot longer to do than in English. And so while I was doing my master's, I was truly Mrs. Studious. Like I couldn't even list off 10 fun things I did during my master's because I was so focused on my school. So that was like one of the things that shocked me, is when you move into an apartment and you have not just roommates but other people in the building, you are really just, I don't know how you say it in English, but you have to live with it. You have to live with other people's noise and habits, and it's not the same as when you live in a house. Like when I was in Ottawa and I was a student, everyone in the student neighborhood had their own house. Like you just rented a house with your friends and your roommates. And so if your neighbors were playing music loud, you didn't hear it as much as you would if you lived in an apartment building. So yeah, that's definitely something that I had to get used to when I moved to France and I started living like 100% in apartment buildings. What else last week? Oh, okay, something interesting that I thought I would talk about, because I guess it surprised me and it disappointed me, I guess you could say. I mean, it's not that dramatic, but I think it was the Minister of Finance who spoke last week or 2 weeks ago in France about how they're going to change the unemployment benefits and like the regulations around unemployment. And France has excellent unemployment. Like their unemployment is, it's got to be one of the best in the world. And what I mean by that is it really covers people, it protects people. And there are cases where people take advantage of the system because it is so great. But I mean, we don't like, anyways, more on that later. But there is a really good unemployment system in France. And the minister spoke, I think it was maybe like a week or 2 weeks ago, about how they were reducing the amount of time you could be on unemployment, increasing the amount of time you had to work to be on unemployment, and being more specific about the types of contracts that you have to be able to claim unemployment. And it just like all of these rules were just really making the criteria for benefiting from unemployment very small. And I thought it was so funny because I know there's mixed feelings on social benefits, there's mixed feelings on unemployment. I can tell you right off the bat, I am someone who believes in those benefits. I think it's important to acknowledge that not everybody has the same privileged life. Like I know, like factually, the fact that I was raised by two parents in a very loving household with loving grandparents with access to food, water, education, shelter. I had a really privileged childhood and life, you know? But not everybody has access to that. And I can't even imagine how hard it would be to live without that kind of support and financial security. So I just think generally that's something that like I acknowledge that not everybody has the same, I want to say privileged upbringing that I did. And to add to that is that I think as a community, as a society, when we support each other, and I think this is statistically shown as well, but that we benefit more, like as a community, as a society. Like people by nature don't want to live their whole lives on unemployment. Like people generally do want to achieve something, but it is a reality to find yourself in a space or a point of life where you just can't get out of. And I really do believe in helping people that need it, and I do think ultimately it benefits community and society in the long run, and generationally as well. So I'm definitely pro unemployment, and I also think there's bigger fish to fry. Like if you want to crack down on people who are abusing the unemployment system, like let's crack down on billionaires who are abusing the tax system. You know what I mean? Like I just think there's bigger fish to fry. But what I thought was interesting about this whole these changes that they want to make to the unemployment system is that they're just so quick to announce all these cuts, but don't even consider the fact that the amount of jobs isn't going to change. Like if your only policy is to reduce unemployment, but you're not going to have an action plan for helping people get jobs or to increasing the amount of jobs that are available to people, then literally the only thing you're doing is like through this policy is making it so that more people struggle. Because okay, if people can't have unemployment, but you're not doing something to increase the amount of jobs that are available or increase the salaries people are getting, like what do you think is going to happen to the people who are no longer able to benefit from things like unemployment? It was just bizarre to me. Like if you're going to make that kind of policy, I think it's like no matter what side of politics you're on, if you're going to implement that kind of policy, you have to implement the policy on the other hand where you are helping people that will no longer have these benefits. You know, if your focus is getting people to reintegrate into the workforce, like you should also talk about your plan for doing that. You know what I mean? I just thought it was so bizarre to only make a statement on the fact that you're reducing unemployment. And I think generally, I do think there is a problem in politics and in governments at the moment where I do think in a lot of ways they've lost touch with reality, I want to say. Like a good example of this is they were talking about the public transportation in Paris for the Olympics and just generally the improvements that need to be made. Because, I mean, Paris has a great network, but Paris also has a lot of people using that network of public transportation. And you know, there are times when you're using the metro and it's like borderline dangerous. There's so many people trying to get on the metro. It's so crowded. You know, a lot of times the trains are canceled to get to work. Like it just, the Paris transportation system is not without its problems, just like with anything. And when you ask the ministers who are responsible for public transportation, it becomes very clear that they don't use the public transportation themselves, that the solutions that they provide are so out of touch with the realities of people who use these systems. And so I just like, in my mind, I'm like, how can you have a minister who's supposed to improve the public transportation if he doesn't or she doesn't use that same public transportation? Like, how can they know what needs to be done? You know what I mean? And it was funny because during the Olympics, I think it was the mayor of Paris, she was asked, what are you going to do for, or what is the solution for Parisians and people who are trying to go to work during the Olympics but can't because it's just flooded with people? And her solution was, she said something ridiculous like, oh, well, don't complain, just get off a stop earlier. Walking 15 minutes isn't going to kill you. And I'm like, first of all, what is that answer? Second of all, getting off the stop earlier is not going to help you with the delay of the actual metro. I don't know. It just blows my mind sometimes what politicians put into place. And it becomes so apparent that they are not living the same reality as the people who are living in the areas that they are governing over, if that makes sense. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it was just surprising to me. What else? Oh my gosh, you guys, the pigeons are back. The pigeons are back. I think I told you guys last week that Jean had added these spikes to the borders of the pallets that we have on the balcony. But he didn't add them on the side that faces like our entrance. So if this is the balcony, like this, Jean put the spikes along the edges of this side and this side. But this side where you would walk on or step onto the couch, he didn't put the spikes because we have crows on the balcony. We're thinking, okay, well, this has got to be enough. Absolutely not. 2 days ago, we start to hear this like cooing. The mom, the dad, the baby are all under the pallets, and we go and look, and they're trapped because they can't get out on the side because we have the spikes on those sides, and they can't get out on our side because we're standing there. And so like we left and they left, and but immediately Jean went to the hardware store. He got some wood, and we're creating a new barrier to like even block this pallet couch off even more. But I was very sad to see that the crows had not deterred in any way these pigeons. And I don't know why, because they look so realistic, but I don't know. And the reviews were so good on Amazon. I really thought they would work. But yeah, no, the fake bird decoys do not scare the Paris pigeons away. But yeah, it should be fine now. It should be fine now that we've 100% blocked off that area. It was just crazy. It reminded me of the comment I read, because someone had commented about how they also had like a baby hatch, and like a few weeks later all of their pigeon friends were coming to that space and pooping all day and stuff, and I just like, that is my fear. I don't want that anymore. Oh my god, it's so funny. So Jean's so many of his friends are taking these big steps in life, like buying houses, not getting married, but it's called getting paxed in France. It's kind of like declaring your relationship to the government. It's sort of like it's like after dating, but under marriage in terms of like hierarchy of commitment, you could say. And so anyways, yeah, all of his friends are going through these phases. And to me, whenever someone accomplishes something, whenever someone has like a big moment like this in their life, my first thought is, oh, let's write them a card and congratulate them. So we went out, we bought all these cards, we wrote all these letters to his friends and stuff, and we sent them out last week. And one of his friends, the guy gets the card, because I'd asked the girlfriend for their postal address. The guy didn't even know the card was coming. And he looks at the card, and he sends Jean a message immediately. He's like, what is this? Is this like you announcing that you guys are pregnant? I'm like, that's your first thought? Like, you just get paxed, and your first thought is the card in the mail is announcing someone's pregnancy. Like, I thought it was so funny. But I don't know, I really love it. It's something that I'm definitely a huge fan of, is trying to keep track of the accomplishments of people, and also big moments big moments that go on in the lives of your friends and family and people that you're close to, and always making sure that you send them a word of like, congratulations or whatever. I know my words are being jumbled. It's just like, this is the first time I'm talking all day. I'm like, my head is not on yet. I haven't finished my caffeinated oats. But anyways, what I was saying is, I really feel like it's important that whenever a friend or family or someone close has an accomplishment or has a huge moment, that you acknowledge it, you congratulate it, because I know I would appreciate that. And, I think we all want to feel special sometimes. And I think cards do a really good job of that, but I just thought it was so funny that his friend thought that we were announcing our pregnancy. We're not pregnant. Anything else? Oh my gosh. I have one more thing on my list of topics, but I really hesitate to talk about it because I really don't want to rant every week about Paris. But at the same time, I do think that it's interesting to highlight what it's like to live here. So I'll just maybe quickly mention this point, but basically Jean had... Actually, and you guys can... I'm going to tell the story because I would be curious to know what your reaction is. Maybe I'm just crazy. But so Jean did his 10K race, right? And he's always so cute. Like whenever the photographers... Because there's photographers across the entire race, right? Like they just take pictures of everybody. And whenever there's a photographer, Jean always like puts up a little heart for me. And so the photographer this time got a really good picture of Jean running with the heart and smiling. And when the photographers upload their photos to the race website, they have like the photo plastered with a watermark but so you can kind of see what the photo is, but you can't see all the details. So anyway, Jean tells me the photo's up, we look at them, and we both, move on with our lives. But I secretly go and pay for all of these photos because I wanted to frame the photo of Jean doing his race. I thought that'd be really cute. I wanted to surprise him with it. And the pack of photos, one photo was 13 euros, which is like almost $20. And then the entire pack of photos, all the photos that were taken of him, I think there was maybe 30. Like, they're not all great quality photos. Some of them are group photos with other people running in them. Some of them are blurry. Like, it's just a pack of 30 photos, some good, some not. And the pack was 25 euros. So, I don't know, like $40. And so I bought it. I have no problem. I'm like, I believe in art. I believe in photography. I'm happy to pay for this. No problem. And so I buy the pack of photos and I download it immediately to like pick out the ones I want to get them printed and stuff. And there is a giant logo of the race on every single photo. Like covering a quarter of each photo is this logo. So it's like, even if you wanted to crop it out, you would still be missing a huge part of the photo. And I was shocked because to me, like, this is the first time I bought race photos for anything. But to me, when a photographer advertises their photography, you just assume you're getting It's not even 8:30. They've started construction. Okay. I'm going to try and finish fast. Hopefully this isn't too bad. But when you buy photos and the photo or the website says you will get your photos minus the watermark, I assume you're getting a clear photo of you without any other logo on it. And so when I get this pack of all these photos with these logos, I email the photographer and I'm like, hi, I think there's a problem. I downloaded the photos. They all have the logo of the race on them, like in a really huge corner. Do you think that you could send me just the photos without a logo? Because that's what it says on your terms and conditions. It says that you just get photos of you, not photos of you plus a logo. And the photographer responds, he's like, oh, well, you're reading the English terms and conditions. In the French, it specifies, and the French is what holds up in the court of law. And so I go and I look at the French version. I guess he assumed I didn't speak French. And I read his French version, and again, it says nothing about a logo added onto the photo. So I send him screenshots of his French terms and conditions, and now I start responding in French. I'm like, well, it actually doesn't say that in your French terms and conditions. So with your own logic, could you honor your terms and conditions and send me the photos without a logo? And then he starts going, well, all of our customers appreciate the logo, so no. And I'm like, I was like, well, you can't say all of your customers appreciate the logo because I am a customer and I don't appreciate the logo. And your website says that I should be getting my photos of me, not of me plus a logo. And he's like, well, if you look closely online before you purchase, the logo is in the corner. And I'm like, you can't see that logo because it's covered by your watermark. And again, when you say that I get a clean photo of me, I assume it's without a logo. And so anyways, after an entire day of back and forth, we sent probably 15 emails back and forth, he refuses. And so because I own a business, because I know what the laws are, every business has to pay for a mediator in the case of a conflict between seller and buyer. And this costs the business owner. Like, I pay for this service. It's in French legislation. And if you don't offer this service to your customers, then you could be fined up to 15,000 euros. And I'm Miss Goody Two-Shoes. I will follow rules to a T. So it didn't even cross my mind whether or not I was going to pay for this service. I'm like, it's in the law. I'm paying for it. This man, this established photographer, didn't follow the law. He didn't have a mediator. It was not listed on his website. And I asked him 3 times to provide this information, and he ignored me every single time, saying that he didn't have one, he didn't need one, and that these emails were good enough as mediation. And I'm like, you might think that, but in the law, like, the law covers consumers for this exact purpose where the buyer and seller have a disagreement. And it is the responsibility of the seller to pay for mediation to find a solution. And again, it's like the cost of these photos was 25 euros. Like, it's really not a big deal. But I was just like, you advertise something on your website and you didn't deliver it. That is so unfair. And like, as you guys have probably gathered, I will not back down. If I feel like I've been wronged in some way, then I won't back down, which is maybe not a good thing. Like, honestly, the entire day I just spent emailing and stressing over the situation. But I actually wrote to like the Better Business Bureau in France with this man's business website and his business information. I was like, this man doesn't have a mediator, which is one, against the law, and two, it is therefore I can't reach out to the mediator to get a solution. And so we'll see where that goes. But I really think French people are not used to dealing with people like me who expect proper, not just proper customer service, but also like proper business practices. You know what I mean? You can't be a photographer and advertise your photos and then slap a logo on every single one of them. Like, can you imagine? Because I was telling this to Jean. He's like, well, it's not that big of a deal. I'm like, Jean, please imagine if we'd paid a photographer for our wedding photos. Like, and the photographer chooses to put a logo on every single one of our photos after we've already decided, like, after we've already signed a contract saying we're just getting our photos. Like, it's the exact same thing, just on a smaller scale. He's like, yeah, okay, in that case, yeah, that would be wrong. And I'm like, okay, so it's wrong for a wedding, but not wrong for a race. So it really shocked me that any time where you're paying a photographer for photos, they can just slap extra logos on them. Like, obviously I understand that the photos aren't going to be used for commercial use, but I told the photographer, I'm like, I just want to frame the photo on my wall. Like, I'm not looking to break the law here and use these photos for anything commercial. Like, I feel like my logic is pretty reasonable here. And yeah, anyways, in the end, he stopped answering my emails. He didn't offer the mediation service that he's legally obligated to. And I don't have any photos without the logo. So that's how that story ended. Maybe I'll frame one. Maybe I'll try and crop the logo out or use Photoshop to get the logo out. I don't know. But it was just annoying. Again, it's just like, there's just no, and like the emails that this man were sending me were so rude. They were like borderline verbally violent, and it's just like, you would never. And also the fact that he tried to like school me, telling me that, oh, I was reading the English version and I'm stupid and I should be reading the French version. It's like, oh man, I can't even imagine what tourists who don't speak French go through when they come to France sometimes. But yeah, that is it. That is all. Sorry, it's like, not only that it's early, this drilling is like nonstop, so my head is kind of all over the place. But let's get to your questions. Hopefully I can answer them before the drilling continues. The first question that we have is from Aki Paju, and they say, when you hear French, do you translate it into your mind? Do you dream in the French language? And I used to. I think when I first got to France, my brain kind of automatically translated from French to English, but now French is almost like, French is my first language in France. It's the language that I speak the most outside of YouTube, outside of my work. I speak French with every single person in my life, from Jean to my friends to Jean's family to my teammates. Like, there's not a single person in Paris, in France, that I speak English to. So at this point, after 8 years of living in France, it's like, I am 100% bilingual. Like, it's not even an afterthought for me. And it's actually easier for me sometimes. I mean, you hear me trip over my words or not be able to think of the term in English, but it's easier for me sometimes to speak in French than in English because the terms are easier for me. The vocabulary is easier for me because I don't speak English as often and I forget words. Robin says, have you tried to sell your itineraries to the Paris travel bureaus or travel agents? No, I have not. The thing with my business is that it is a one-man show, which sometimes I kind of regret, you could say, because there's so many things that I want to accomplish. There's so many things that I want to improve. I want to do better, but it's really hard to juggle both two YouTube channels, filming, editing, posting, and all of the like thumbnail art that goes along with that, while also managing a website and selling products. I'm kind of at like my maximum capacity at the moment. I would love to be able to hire an intern at some point to be able to help me with things like this, like, you know, getting the itineraries out there because it's kind of limited at the moment. But I remember when I was an intern and I really did not appreciate because in France, you can pay interns like a third of a regular salary. And it really bothered me as an intern to have to apply to internships that weren't going to pay me like a living wage, enough for me to actually live in the city where the internship was. So I do want to make sure before I hire an intern, I can, compensate them the way that I would have liked to be compensated as an intern. But all that to say, I have not yet done that. But in the future, I would like to. It's just, I really am at my maximum capacity at the moment. Deep Bow says, what are some Paris hidden gems? This one's hard because I like to keep my top secrets from my itineraries. But I would say whenever people come to Paris and they ask me what is a hidden gem that they should visit, I always say the Canal Saint-Martin. Like, I think it's a place that not a lot of tourists go. And even me, when I first moved to Paris, I didn't go to the canal very often. But once you discover it, you realize just how calming and peaceful and beautiful it is. It's a great place to go for bars, to eat. It's an amazing place to go to have a picnic. There's lots of great shops and stuff. It's very much a Paris or a Parisian-centric neighborhood. A lot of the neighborhoods in the center of Paris are tourist-centric, right? Like, they cater to the tourist clientele. That's why you don't have a lot of Parisians that go to those areas. Like, I remember when I was doing my Bonjour Paris webinar on the 8th arrondissement, people were frustrated with me that I couldn't give recommendations for like restaurants and activities and stuff. And I'm like, as a local, I never go into the 8th, or very rarely, just because it's centered around tourists. It's not centered around the needs or the enjoyment of locals. Whereas the Canal Saint-Martin, which is more in the 9th, the 10th, and the 20th, that is centered more, around locals, and it's more of a charming atmosphere, I would say. Other than that, I would say another place that I love to go and actually didn't realize was free until probably year 3 of me living in Paris was the Petit Palais. It is a free museum that you can go and visit, and they also have a cafe in the center. It's like on looking this really beautiful garden. And I think it's so special to be able to come to this place and take the time to sit down, have a coffee, and just be calm in this very hidden garden of Paris. I'm not too sure how busy it gets in the summer, but generally speaking throughout the year, it is a very quiet, calm, secret place. So those are my 2 recommendations for you. Coffee Queen says, do you have summer vacation plans? I have a few. Vacation plans. One I want to keep secret, but you guys will see. Probably in August. Other than that, I will end up going to Fura with Jean at some point to see his family. Fura, if you guys haven't heard me talk about it before, is a coastal city. It's on the water, so it's really nice to go and visit in the summer. And I don't have any plans to go to Canada, but typically I can find really good flights in the summer to go and visit my family for less than 500 euros round trip. So if I can find a flight like that, maybe in September, then I'll go home. But yeah, I mean, I don't have any concrete travel plans yet. I was debating whether or not to stay in Paris for the Olympics because, as you guys know, crowds really stress me out. But Jean and his friends got a couple tickets for some of the games. So I'm like, as a Paris YouTuber, I feel like it's my duty to report on these things live from an event. So I think I will probably end up staying in Paris during the Olympics. Initially, I thought I might go to Greece or something like that. But yeah, for the moment, outside of my secret summer plans that you guys will see later, I have not too much planned. Coffee Queen also says, can you do a Paris supermarket tour? Would be so interesting to see. And as soon as you said this, I was like, yes, this is exactly something I would love to do. It's hard to know as someone who does her groceries in Paris, I'm like, is this interesting to people? I don't know. But for me, I think if someone showed me a supermarket anywhere else in the world, it would be interesting to see. So I actually bought a new camera. I bought the Instago 3, which is I think an easier camera than the GoPro. But anyways, the reason I'm saying this is I bought this camera which really helps you when you're vlogging things that are in motion, like going to a supermarket. So once I get that camera, then I will do a little tour in the grocery store with Jean, and we'll show you guys our favorite products that you can only get in France that you should try. I see a lot of those going around on TikTok of like the must tries when you come to Paris. And I don't know if they're rage bait, but sometimes I'm like, oh my God, this is not the number one thing I would buy from a French grocery store if I was visiting. So maybe we'll do that. I think that could be fun. D Kitten says, do you think you'll get married soon? Love you guys. Yes. I get this question from my mom as well. My mom and my grandma. Yes, of course I think we'll get married. I've said this probably a million times, but Jean is, I am 10 billion% sure that Jean is my forever partner. I have never been in such a healthy, happy relationship with anyone. It's not even a question, I don't think, for either one of us, like, are we getting married? It's more like, when? But yeah, I knew almost from the start that I wanted to spend the rest of my life with Jean. It was just such a different relationship than what I'd experienced before. But do I think we'll get married soon? I don't know. Of course I would like to, but I think a lot of people my age sort of face this problem of, do we save for a down payment? Do we save for a wedding? You know, because they're two huge expenses. And as much as I would like to have a wedding, it just does not make sense to me to have a wedding but not have a down payment. And I think as well, like, again, as much as I want to get married, I really do. I would love to get married today if we could. But again, it's like you only get married once. You want to have the most wonderful celebration possible. And you need to be in a place financially to be able to do that. And so, yeah, that's kind of where my head is at the moment when it comes to marriage. Of course, it's something that we would both like to do. It's just a matter of finding the right time and also making sure that we are making the right financial decisions for us. K Rich says, what arrondissement do you live in, if not too prying? From Kay, your Toronto friend in Portland. You'll notice that I never talk about where I live in Paris. I think since I probably lived in 4 different neighborhoods in Paris at this point, and I never mention it, and I do that intentionally. I don't love to share where I live. I am a very cautious person. So, yes, it's very intentional that I don't share any of the arrondissements where I live. I'm sorry, you guys. Fatima says, how can I prevent from being pickpocketed in Paris? I think it's so smart. Fatima, you also have very smart and forward-looking questions. It is something that is so important to think about, because before I came to France, my parents, before I came to France, I had done trips with my family. I think we did a family trip to Italy to see my family in Italy. And I remember even as a child, my parents being like, beware of the pickpockets, beware of the pickpockets. But when I was a child, and even before I moved to France, you have this idea of what a pickpocket is. Like, you think that you can spot them. You could spot maybe 10% of them. Like, pickpockets have evolved to a point where they intentionally wear things like suits and business clothes, and like to make people feel like they can let their guard down. And it's just like, the thing with Paris is it's a great city. I love it here, but you do have to be on guard 24/7, especially if you're going to any of the areas that are hyper touristic. If you're using the metro, like it's just, they are everywhere. Sometimes you can spot them, sometimes you can't. One group of pickpockets that you will always be able to spot, which I'll tell you right now, is a group of young girls, I want to say teenagers to early 20s, that sort of go through the metro in this group of girls, and they have these really big bags. They normally wear vests or like some sort of layer. They wear backpacks, and if you see this group of girls, they are pickpockets. Like, I don't have a picture of them. Not hopefully, but if I ever see them in the metro, I will try and take a picture and show it to you guys in a podcast. But that's one group of pickpockets that everyone in Paris knows about. But then other than that, like, it really is just so subtle. I've had friends be pickpocketed by men in business suits. I've had just people leave the metro and their bags be completely emptied. It's just honestly, be so careful. The number one tip that I would say that I use, other than being constantly aware of your environment, is to wear a crossbody bag and always have it facing you with your hand on it. I would not use your phone openly in the metro, because as soon as those doors open, someone can take the phone out of your hand and walk out of the metro. So whenever I'm in places like the metro, walking on the street, I have my phone and my wallet in my crossbody. My hand is on it. Like, I always have it in front of me. Yeah, keep your valuables close to you. Limit the amount of valuables that you're taking, and always back up your phone, because you never know. You never know what's going to happen. Oh my gosh. And also, please do not fall for the pickpocket trap of when they hand you a clipboard and they want you to sign. I do not understand how in this day and age, when there's so much awareness of pickpockets, that people still fall for this. But if someone comes up to you and asks you to sign a petition or donate money, like, do not stop. Do not sign their petition, because this is like a complete distraction so that they can have their partners rob you while you're distracted signing something. So that's another one to be aware of. Just generally be aware of your surroundings, be aware of who's trying to talk to you, and you should be fine. I don't want to scare you. I hate to scare people, but it is just a reality that you do have to understand that Paris is crawling with pickpockets. And then the last question is from Joie and Travel, and she says, how difficult was it to learn to code your own website? Oh my gosh, I feel like a fraud. I did not code my own website. The easiest solution for me was Shopify, because you can kind of design your own website without the huge work of having to code the website. Again, if you do want more customized, a more customizable appearance on your website, then you do have to code. So I coded a couple things, but it was pretty straightforward. Like, everything with coding is very straightforward, because you have ChatGPT who that can help you. You have so much information online of people who have coded absolutely everything, and you just copy their code. So for the things that I did have to code, it wasn't that easy. It wasn't that hard. And for the rest of it, Shopify does a pretty good job of making sure that you can build your own website pretty hassle-free. So yeah, I'm surprised that it doesn't show more that I use Shopify. I think at the very bottom of my website it says Shopify everywhere, but yeah, honestly, the easiest thing for me was Shopify. And I think, like, they obviously take a percentage. Everything you do takes a percentage. That's one thing I didn't realize, is that, like, uploading a PDF, sending a PDF, having the website, having a domain, having an email, everything is like a monthly charge. Absolutely everything. So I think that's probably the only downside of not having built and coded my own website, is that everybody gets a piece of the pie when you go with a platform like Shopify. But yeah, it was just the easiest solution for me, given that I am a one-man show, like I mentioned. But yeah, all right, that is all for today's podcast. We made it through without too much drilling and without Jean having woken up, which kind of surprises me. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's podcast, and I will see you on Thursday on this channel, and then on Saturday on my main channel. I hope you guys have the best day, the best week. I hope we see some sunshine this week in Paris, and I'll see you guys in the next one.